This is The Driver with Alice Powell, sponsored by Bristol Street Motors.
England's cricket women's team, they're World Cup winners, and they flew economy everywhere. And the men's team were getting beat 5-0 in the Ashes and were flying business class. And I could not believe it. This is England, the highest level. This is not at county level, this is the highest level.
Well, girls don't play with footballs or the rugby balls or whatever. It was not something that was seen as normal, whereas it's just normalising everything. It's, girls can play sport and they can have a career in sport and they can enjoy it in exactly the same way and they can excel at it in exactly the same way. And I think if you become sort of athletic looking, it used to be seen as something that was not right for a woman, whereas I think now we're seeing all these incredible role models, whether it's a footballer, whether it's someone like Dean Asher Smith, whatever sport it might be in, it's something that can be enjoyed.
Time was coming around.
I'm super excited to be joined with two incredible guests today. Firstly, Mr. Darren Gough MBE, a retired, there we go, get that in, don't forget that, is a retired cricketer and former Yorkshire County Cricket Club captain, very impressive. Gough, known as Goughy, would you say that's your nickname?
Yeah, Goughy, Rhino, Goughy? Dazzler, Dazzling, anything.
Rhino, where does the Rhino come from?
Well, most people will joke.
We're not allowed to know.
No, well, it's not what you think it is. But it's, they always said I was built like one, I'd run through a brick wall, so it was kind of that, but... and I have a love for rhinos. I do a lot of charity work for conservation and raise a lot of money for the rhino. Okay, so you've got many nicknames there. Well, apparently you were referred to the pulse of the dressing room and you're responsible for England's bowling attack much through the 1990s. I was born in 93, so I won't remember much of that. Sorry. He is England's second highest wicket taker in one-day internationals with 235. And then took 229 wickets in 58 test matches, making him England's 9th most successful wicket taker. So you're still in the top 10. That's good. Amazing. Darren retired at the end of 2008 cricket season, but that didn't stop him from being on our screens and in our ears. Very handy with your feet, so I hear. And also working on TalkSport since 2009. Yeah, as well as this, he participated in the BBC TV show Strictly Come Dancing. We're going to see some dance moves today. We obviously have got cameras. I've got a metal leg now, so the dancing days are done. 3 times champion, it gets boring. There's only so much dancing you can win, so I've given it up. Well, you did become the first cricketer to win the show, and then, as you mentioned, you won it again in the 2005 Christmas special. You're currently back working in the game you love, managing director, for cricket at Yorkshire Cricket Club. So thank you, Darren. And then secondly, Eilidh Barbour. Thanks for coming on. You have a degree in film and media studies from the University of Stirling and began presenting sports news and BBC News Channel in September 2014. Yeah?
Probably around then. Yeah.
Around then.
It feels a long time ago.
Feels a long time ago. Your time in university, you were lucky enough to get a taste of it with BBC Radio Scotland, 5 Live, covering British Open and the Rugby Autumn International. So I suppose that was quite a good help for you in university. Or was it a bit nervous being thrown in when you're still studying and learning?
I think when you're that age, you don't think about nerves, do you? I mean, there's no pressure when you're at uni because it's not your job. It's you're just trying to learn stuff. Yeah, so it was amazing. The Open was incredible. An experience, met a lot of people, and then obviously
and you probably learned a lot as well.
Oh yeah.
I think learning on the job is a real big thing, especially with like apprenticeships and that these days.
Definitely,
it's the best way.
Yeah, you had to do it back then. It's a little bit different now, but back then it was all about just trying to get in, work for free, find out what you were doing, try and be useful, be good at making tea.
Work for free.
Work for free.
I mean, it was called work experience, but I mean, I made a lot of tea and coffee. So I was a vital part of that team.
Brilliant. Well, you've covered live sport for various outlets, including BBC Scotland, Channel 5, BBC 5 Live and Sky Sports. And you're now, I would say, one of the most recognised presenters in sports broadcasting. You've worked on Football Focus as well, the Women's World Cup, and you're the face of BBC Golf's coverage. So I think you're, and I would like to say as well, a big figure in equality in sports, which obviously is a big part for me, being in motorsport. So thank you both for coming on. Now, I'm going to jump to a little bit of an icebreaker now, because, you guys chat away, if you have been talking about golf, but I'm going to set the scene a little bit. So you've both travelled quite a long way. One's flown, one's driven. But either way, you're in your car, seat back, You've got 7-hour trip. Is that probably how long it would have taken to you to get here if you drove?
If I drove,
7 hours.
6 minutes.
Nice one.
Well, I came from Scotland last night, and that was 7 hours. Yeah.
There we go. So imagine you're doing that all over again. You adjusted the seat. What is your go-to song of choice? Your first song that you'll stick on to set you off on that journey?
I'm quite a podcaster.
Okay.
I'll put a podcast on, but then eventually I need some. But my drive, anything I can sing to, and I love musical theatre. So
Yeah.
I mean, I'll get the musicals on and play every part.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm
don't
not a
expect that.
podcaster.
Well, I tell you what, you could sing and Darren could dance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There you go.
We
You
work well
exactly.
together. I think for me, there's a couple of songs. I mean, just coming here today, if I really want to liven it up, it's a bit of Jason Derulo, Riding Solo.
Jason,
I
there
love
we go.
that.
I can see you now. You see
Riding Solo.
Winds through his hair.
Absolutely. Lighthouse Family back in the day as well. That was a long time ago though, but that was good. They used to have a song called Drive, didn't they? Which was good. And Walking on Sunshine was a song which was a big part of my career actually. It was my walk-on song when they first started walk-on songs until they stopped. But so I think that's always held a good memory for me. Walking on Sunshine. It's quite lively. It's upbeat, and it kind of sums me up as a personality. I think that's the one song that everybody would probably know me from.
Yeah.
Who knows cricket and me. They kind of attach them together.
Oh, great. Well, while you're scrolling through your songs, halfway through your journey, what would be the most embarrassing song on that playlist? Because everyone's got one.
Oh, wow.
I suppose that's quite the
Well, for me,
Musical.
Kylie Minogue. All
Minogue.
Was it all the lovers or all your lovers? I can't remember. All the lovers.
There we go.
Kylie Minogue. Yeah, I mean,
I've probably
I'll be
got
honest.
loads. I don't know, I don't know how you get embarrassed by music, because music is music, right? It's whatever your mood is, isn't
Yeah,
it?
that's-
Depends who's in the car with you, though, right?
Well, maybe,
You're gonna
like-
think how macho boys are.
Be careful
Well,
of those
exactly.
Nicki Minaj
Yeah.
songs.
when
on.
the musicals come on, I do get a few strange looks. But no, I think like, if you're in the mood for a bit of Whitney or a bit of Britney, whatever it is, or maybe you just want,
Yeah, hey,
you
don't
know,
mind Britney,
I do
yeah.
I like my 90s indie. I grew up
There we go.
in the 90s, so
There
you
you
know,
go.
get the
So what might be
Indie tracks
embarrassing for
on.
you guys might not be embarrassing for
exactly.
someone else. But last one for the icebreaker is, you've got a time machine. If you could go back to one sporting event, doesn't matter where it is, what time it is, whereabouts, which one?
I have to go back quite a long way to get Scotland in a World Cup for the men's team,
You would.
so you know I might need a time machine for that.
And the women, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, no, I was hoping we'd get the women back, but yeah, last night saw an end to that. But there are so many big sporting moments. I mean, working in golf, we talk about like the great golfers like Arnold Palmer and then these guys. I never saw any of them play. And the same with footballers. I never saw Maradona play in the flesh. I never saw Pele play in the flesh. You know, these kind of guys who are the pioneers of sports and changed sport and were. I mean, I'd love to go back and maybe I could say the hand of God. Then I would see Maradona play and that big moment that Scotland fans still sing about, believe it or not.
Wow.
But yeah.
For me, like I say, I'm a massive lover of all sports, but I think it'd have to be the only time we've won the World Cup in football. That'd be '66.
Yeah, I'd say that's
I
one
was
of mine as well.
I wasn't born till '70, so
I
to
need a
go to
future
that-
machine from me to do
Yeah.
Scotland in a
Yeah.
World Cup.
just to be there at that moment at Wembley would have been unbelievable, and beating Germany, it would have just. I'd love to
Would
have
have
been.
been crazy, wouldn't it?
Bristol Street Motors present the very latest word on the street with the Driver Podcast.
Just talk a little bit about your career, because obviously we've all sort of around and in sport here, but your career was just so incredible. So how did you start off getting into cricket?
By accident, probably.
Okay.
I always loved all sports. As I said, I played tennis when Wimbledon was on. I always played golf. I just had a 7-iron back then when I was 14 and 15. Football was my main sport, which I tended to excel at from a very young age, from being 8. I played for Barnsley all the way through their school system up to 16. And everybody thought I was just going to be a footballer, me included. It didn't happen at Barnsley. I was blown away. I didn't get a YTS. But luckily, Rotherham United gave me an opportunity. But then cricket, I was a late developer with cricket, and I always played, but I was always like okay, but not the best. And then suddenly I had a growth spurt, and I got stronger and bigger. And then one guy saw me, and then my cricket career went doof through the roof. Really went quickly. And when I tell people, but I'd never ever been to a first-class county cricket match before I made my debut.
Right.
Because most people go to a football match, or I'd never seen a first-class county championship cricket match live. I'd never been to one. And then I was playing. That's how quick it happened.
So how different your life could have been.
Yes.
Barnsley have gone, right, we'll try and we'll take you on and... and we'll
amazing. And let's say football is still my favourite sport. And when I look back, I still would have loved to have been a professional footballer, but I obviously it wasn't meant to be. I wasn't good enough, or whatever it may be. But cricket gave me an unbelievable life where I travelled around the world. Like I say, records. It ended pretty badly with the injury when I was at my peak, but I had a terrific ride, I would say, from 1989 through to 2008.
Yeah, that's great. And what would you say probably would be your standout highlight? Clearly got, from the stats we read, got a lot of highlights, a lot of incredible moments, but if you had to pick one specifically?
Well, as a team, as an England team, I think it would have to be when we won in Sri Lanka and Pakistan. But as an individual, I got a hat-trick against Australia in 98, 99, don't know which one it was. But it was the only one of the century, and no one's done it since. So I think that as an individual, that has to be probably the one standout moment, which is very rare, obviously, for an Englishman going against Australia, the biggest enemy, the best team in the world. And to do that was very special. I think most people know me for that as well.
And I think obviously you've played professional football. Well, neither of us at Darren's level, but breaking into broadcasting. So I've sort of started doing stuff for Channel 4 now on their Formula One coverage. How difficult was it for you? Because broadcasting is still quite male dominated. I mean, when you turn on the TV now, most of the time the presenters are male, even when you turn on radio, sports radio as well. So how was it for you breaking into that side of broadcasting?
I don't think I ever really sort of thought about it or realised it. I grew up in a really small village in Scotland, and I loved sport. I don't know why I loved sport, but from as early as I can remember, both my parents played sports and had an interest. My mum was always trying to get us outside playing. I had a younger brother. My cousins were all male. My class at school had 27 boys and 5 girls in it.
Wow.
So sport
That's
was
mad,
sport was just a thing, and I was never made to feel that I couldn't be part of it. I played football with the boys. I represented my primary school team in the football team. Which
there we go.
was a big moment for me.
I bet you could have just stayed in primary school the whole time. It was just a fun playground, wasn't it?
So I sort of hadn't ever been brought up being told I couldn't do sport or play sport or be part of sport. So I think that gave me probably a quite blinkered view, but quite a good sort of blinkered view in terms of what I wanted to go into. I didn't ever think, I can't do that because I'm a girl. And my sort of idol growing up, the reason that I sort of wanted to go into sports broadcasting happened quite young. I was probably about 13, 14 years old, and it was watching Grandstand on a Saturday afternoon, and it was the first time Hazel Irvine had presented it. And not only did we always see men on our TVs and presenting Grandstand, it was always English voices. So for me, I didn't see anything different from me to Hazel. A Scottish accent, a female, and instantly I was like, I want to do what Hazel does. So I didn't sort of see that and think about that until probably I was already in the door, if you like. So that never sort of seemed to be a barrier for me, and it was just, I had no plan B, so I didn't really have a choice. I had to make it work.
Do you think that's the thing, having that support network around you? If let's say if you didn't have that family sort of push you not to necessarily go into that, would you have still insisted and gone pushing into broadcasting, or do you feel, because I find going in motorsport paddocks, and it's probably the same down maybe when you see through grassroots, and even gone to young kids' football matches while watching my cousins. Some of the parents, feel, are pushing the kids to play the sports, and then some of the kids really want to do it, but the parents aren't pushy. So I think, do you find that is a big impact into maybe why you continue to push in through? I mean, Darren, did your parents, were they quite supportive with going with you through, if you decided, oh no, actually I had to go and try cricket now?
Well, no, my parents were, they didn't play sport whatsoever. They both worked hard. Mum was a midwife, my dad done every job you can imagine. He's been in pest control for probably 40 odd years of his life. He loves it, he's still passionate about it. He's in his 70s now and he just can't stop.
We know who to go for pest control, don't we?
Yeah, he's unbelievable. But they, I said, coming from a family that never really had a lot of money, they put everything on the line to give me an opportunity, whether it be football. They benefited as well, by the way. We used to go to Butlins a lot when I was a kid, and I used to win holidays for them all the time because I was the most talented sportsman, whether it be diving, football, cricket. I did everything. I was just Sport Billy, always was as a kid. Even rugby, I was pretty solid at rugby as well. I'm built for rugby, so I was pretty strong.
Yeah.
So they did take me everywhere. Their life were really about taking me to sporting events, and my brother. My sister's 10 years younger than me, so she didn't really play sport. She went down my mum's route where she did a bit of dancing. My mum did ballet up to...
So that's where you get the dancing from then. She could have been a ballet dancer.
Before she became a midwife. So that's where they really, really pushed and supported me massively. But me as a parent, totally different. I would say I'm probably too relaxed. I didn't push my kids at all. And probably when I look back now, I probably should have pushed them a bit more. Both very, very talented sportsmen. My oldest son now, he played for Essex for 3 years. My younger one was probably more talented.
Yeah.
But he has really struggled injuries from being a young boy. He's had everything from, he's had stannus, the loose joints. So he used to keep dislocating his shoulders. He's had stress fractures of his back. And that really affected his confidence and sport. Like now he's just took up golf. He's gone from 20 to 10 in like 2 months. And
so
it's ridiculous. But the older one did become a professional cricketer for a few years. But I didn't push them enough. I always felt, but because of the pressure of being my sons, it was horrendous. I used to see it, and even I was cringing. And it must have been so difficult for my sons following in my footsteps. And I don't recommend that to any parent. But for me to have pushed them with the added pressure, I thought would have been too much because they were feeling it. When my sons played for their county young sides, Buckinghamshire, where I live, parents used to come up to me when they got him out. Oh, I just got your son out. I'm like, yeah.
Big deal.
Yeah, but do you know what I mean? So that pressure, I could easily react to that, but it was just a case of, well bowled, he bowled really well. So I tried to turn it on the other side and be really nice, overly nice. But deep down, it does hurt, you know what I mean? When parents feel as though they can come up to you and talk about getting your son out. He's just a kid who wants to play sport, you know what I mean? And it's an horrible situation when you're trying to follow in your father's footsteps.
And do you think the cross-all thing, that's where we need to maybe improve grassroots sports? I mean, I know in football now they've got sort of the barriers, but I mean, motorsport, for an example, you still get the parents scrap more than the kids do. And the kids are whizzing around, these 8 to 10-year-olds are whizzing around at 60 mile an hour in these tiny go-karts. And you've got the parents sort of scrapping on the side. Yep. So do you think it needs more, obviously needs to be done at the sort of grassroots level? But for cricket, for example, what needs to improve on the grassroots on that side?
That was at professional level. You'll still get now, in my role now, you still get parents ring up. The boy's 18, 19, 20, you know what I mean? He's now looking after himself in a way. Most of them have agents now from 16, which I've found amazing since I've come back into the game. Let's say after being in broadcasting for so long, 15 years, to come back into the game. Agents at 16. So not only you have to deal with their agents, they're also parents are bringing you as well, wanting, why isn't this and why that? And surely their son and their agent between them should be dealing with it. But some parents just can't stay away. They have to be involved in some way or format. And then when you watch your kids play, football is still probably the worst, I would say, by a long shot. I don't think it takes much. working out. Rugby, I've seen a few incidents in rugby over the years when my boys played at school, and where parents get really passionate and involved. They're playing the game almost for the kids, aren't they? But I was the opposite. Everybody would consider me like an extrovert and loud at a sporting event, but I was like quiet as a mouse. I'm introvert. I don't say anything. On purpose, I don't say anything.
That probably winds some of the other parents up.
Yeah.
Don't say anything.
Yeah, it probably does. And I just feel as though I didn't want to embarrass myself. Yes, I know probably a lot about sport and being around it, but I always think, let them just play.
Yeah.
Let them just play. They're kids, you know? Let them just play and enjoy it. Because if you push too hard, there's only one thing that's going to happen. The kids are going to walk away.
Yeah.
There's going to come a time when...
Fragile age.
Yeah, they're going to come a time. They're just going to walk away. They don't want that pressure. Let them just enjoy any sport and encourage your kids to play any sport. The one with, for me, is, but my kids, let's say, look at very talented sportsmen from a young age. They got asked to join a tennis academy. Like real tennis academy, like the top. And they came to my house and said... both your children are very talented tennis players. They're like 11 and 8. But they can't play any other sports. Every holidays they had to go to tennis camp and they're not allowed to play any other sports. So I went, right, there's the door, off you go. No, they're playing all sports until they're old enough to make the decision for themselves. And that's that's my strong personality came through there. They didn't want to play just tennis from being 11 and 8. They want to play cricket, they want to rugby, they want to experience all sports, you know what I mean? They love going in go-karts, they still do. They love going to go go-karting in Milton Keynes, which I'm near to. They love golf. You don't want them just to play one sport, let them enjoy it.
I think it's a fascinating thing with football. Like you say, football's still bad. The number of kids you hear about who go into academies when they're 7, 8 years old, and then they're not allowed to play in their school team, and they're not allowed to play in their Sunday team, and they lose that love of it.
Why are they not allowed? I mean, because I don't.
Because the academies protect them, and so they then don't get to play with their school friends and the friends in the team that they grew up playing in, and they lose, I think, a little bit of that love. For the game,
because you're creating a barrier straight away, aren't you?
And you're not allowed to play other sports as well. A lot of the academies would be like, oh no, you can't play golf or you can't do this. And I did when Iceland qualified for the Euros, the men's team, and it was such a big moment. I went over to Iceland and did a piece for the BBC all about the sort of rise of Icelandic football over that decade to get to that point of getting to a major tournament. And in Iceland, I mean, there are a lot of things in Iceland that were very different, but one thing is that they force all children, if you're a part of an academy, you have to do another sport, because they don't want to just put you into football, and they believe that you will learn so many other things from doing various different sports. And they also include chess as a sport, which I found quite interesting.
I mean, I wouldn't even know where to start with chess, I have to say.
That whole sort of
not for me.
strategy.
I don't know how to cheat in chess, let alone play it.
But I find that quite interesting, because we talk a lot about sort of thinking 2-3 steps ahead in sport, and when you look at the players
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, the players that are, if you look at Man City, for example, the way that they play, players know exactly where they are. They're thinking a couple of steps ahead, and that's ultimately chess, isn't it? So I found that quite interesting that they include chess. But yeah, I totally agree that if you love sport, you love sport. And if you're told you can't do some of it, you start to resent the sport that is forcing you not to do the stuff that you enjoy. So
how do you fit? Because obviously the Women's Euros, massive. I was lucky. Do either of you attend?
I'd worked at a few games,
there. I mean, I was lucky to go to the final. Incredible atmosphere. What do you think that's going to have impact-wise on female grassroots sports in general, not just the Euros?
I think it has a big impact on just women's sport. I mean, when Wimbledon comes on every summer, nobody talks about the fact that there's a women's tournament and a men's tournament happening at the same time, because it's happened for however many years, and nobody says, I don't watch Wimbledon because there's women that play. We watch Wimbledon because we love it, because it's tennis. And whether it's a men's singles match, a women's singles match, a mixed doubles match, whatever, it's tennis. We love watching it, and it's just like an iconic sporting event of the calendar year. And I think, again, the success of the Women's Euros and the fact that England won it was incredible for this country and for the way that the game will develop and the way that women's sport can develop in this country. But in general, the quality that was on show throughout the tournament, the level, the crowds, it was an incredible tournament to watch. And you didn't need to be a women's football fan to enjoy that. As a football fan, that was an incredible tournament to watch. And again, the fact that England got to the final was sort of the icing on the cake, if you like, for the tournament itself. And I mean, the number of parents I now speak to who are trying to get their daughters to go and play, and it's not just football, it's any sport. You know, there's now... Yeah. When I was growing up, my mum and dad, like much like your mum and dad, Darren, were very good at taking me to play football. I mean, I played football for a local team, under 13s level and under 16s level, which back then, I mean, I'm not that old, but back then was, you know, it wasn't a thing that every little girl wanted to do, but I did. I wanted to do it, and they allowed me to do it. But, you know, even sort of that generation, it was like, oh, well, girls don't play with the like footballs or the rugby balls or whatever. It was not something that was seen as normal, whereas it's just normalising everything. It's, you know, girls can play sport and they can have a career in sport and they can enjoy it in exactly the same way and they can excel at it in exactly the same way. And I think just that visibility shows that. And we think about, even when you're at high school having to do PE, how some girls found that really difficult if you weren't, you know, because it was... You know, it's like an awkward time of your life, isn't it? And when you see the fact that women in sport is something that is not unusual, it becomes a lot easier, I think, to enjoy sport. And, you know, the way your body changes when you're that age, whatever. Like if you become sort of athletic looking, it used to be seen as something that was not right for a woman. Whereas, you know, I think now we're seeing all these incredible role models, whether it's a footballist, whether it's someone like Dean Asher Smith, whether, you know, whatever sport it might be in, we're just seeing that it's something that can be enjoyed by men and women. Yeah,
and I think for me personally, being able to just turn on the TV and see women's sport now, flicking on the TV last night, watching England play, or on ITV, you wouldn't have got that. No. 10 years ago, not even probably, 2 or 3 years ago. So, and it's on radio coverage with the W series that I race in. That was being shown sort of on BBC about the series having to stop this year. So I think that as broadcasting as well is doing a huge thing. Apart from obviously rugby, when they didn't fly the women out on first class or whatever I read, which was a bit... That made my blood boil ever so slightly, but I think the broadcasting world is doing a great job sort of pushing it in the right direction.
Well, on that, when I worked at TalkSport, I actually did a big thing on that, because England's cricket women's team, they're World Cup winners, and they flew economy everywhere. And the men's team were getting beat 5-0 in the Ashes and were flying business class. And I could not believe it. I mean, what you're talking about, this is England... And the women's team are flying economy, and the men's team, who were losing at the time, were all flying in business. And I found that absolutely amazing. This is England, the highest level. This is not at county level. This is the highest level. And now I think that's changed. Well, it has changed. Yeah, and it had to. And in my job now as MD of cricket at Yorkshire, I'm in charge of the men's game, and I oversee the women's game as well. And Northern Diamonds, we've had huge success this year. They've been better than the men's team. They won the trophy at Lords, which was fantastic for them. They've got a good support. And now with the ECB's help, the 100 that came out, which caused a lot of controversy in sport, for the women's game, it's grown it to another level. Women now are having, at county level, in the 100, if you want to call it county, even though it's franchise, they're having 10, 11,000 people watching a game. Internationals have always had decent crowds, but now at the level, they're getting amazing crowds watching cricket matches, and it's done wonders for the women's game, the 100.
Yeah, I think that's as well what is sort of, we talk about a lot with equality in sport. It's being treated the same. Like people say, oh well, the WSL is never going to get the same money as the Premier League. But we know that. We know the Premier League is an entity all of its own. You know, I mean, that's not what we're saying. We're not saying that if you win the WSL, you should get the same financial rewards as if you win the Premier League. But what you're saying is, if you are at Chelsea as a men's player and as a women's player, the way that you train and the way that what the club provides for you should be of a similar level.
Yeah, you're an athlete. They're both athletes at the end of the day.
Exactly. They're both representing the same club or country or county or whatever it might be. And what you want to be treated is the same. You want to have the same, for it to carry the same weight, to be an international England men's player and to be an international England women's player, because it should be equal in that respect.
Yeah,
and we're trying to get there.
And that's
and it's still difficult. Being in that now, it is hard, because there is still barriers. It's got so much better, so much better. But even the main job with the men, and that brings in the biggest revenue in cricket, and obviously it's not rich cricket, it's not a rich sport, especially at county level. Internationally, is the ECB are making millions, selling out every test match. They're getting more and more internationals, but in the county game, it's still without the one-day game influence and the money handouts from the ECB, it's hard to survive. But like the men's team, they spend so much money on training facilities, on overseas tours, and even there you're thinking as an individual, we've got to get the girls out on pre-season as well. Why don't they come with us on pre-season? Because it'll always come back, it's the expense. But hang on a minute, they're having success. They should actually be coming with us on the pre-season as well, and we should be going as a whole group. We should be going as a whole group, the men's team and the women's team. So there is still barriers to break down, but I think it's improved so much over the last 3 or 4 years, and it is improving every single year. That's what I've noticed in cricket, especially. Yeah,
would you feel that there's still barriers even in broadcasting? Because Eilidh, you walked out in May, didn't you, in 2022 this year? Sorry, after you said you never felt so unwelcome at the Scottish Football Writers Association gala. So is there still? We're talking about players playing on the pitch, but is there still barriers even in that broadcasting side?
I don't know if I would call that a barrier. So that was the Scottish Football Writers Awards night, end of season awards night, and it's quite it's the first time that I've ever been, might well be the last. But they only allowed women to come around about 10, 12 years ago, I think. So it was a very kind of close. That's
still so, like, you say 10, 12 years, but that's still so recent, isn't it? Yeah.
And it is that in particular, the print journalism side in Scotland, anyway, certainly is very male dominated. There are a lot more females, I think, within the broadcasting side of football coverage in Scotland, but certainly the print journalist side is very male. So this dinner, they always have like an after dinner speaker, and it was the after dinner speaker that, I mean, it was just discrimination from start to finish. Started off with women. He used the word poof more than once. He referred to that we've got quite a few Japanese players at Celtic at the moment. He used derogatory terms to describe them. It was incredible, and that somebody could think that is humorous. And given that, there were people, every demographic that he hit, there were people within that room who it affected. And he started off with sort of making it very clear that he was just using women as a way to get a laugh, by being, pretty. It was pretty awful stuff. Just not stuff that, if people want to still have those jokes, you have them in a closed environment.
There's a time and a place.
You don't do it in a room filled with women and,
and journalists.
Families. And
journalists, exactly.
At the same time, it always blows my mind that the people that find this amusing and laugh at it and stuff, because the vast majority of those guys will be married and they will have kids. Maybe they'll have a daughter. Maybe they'll then have a granddaughter. How do they expect and how do they want these family members that they will love with all their heart to grow up in a world that they're expecting them to grow up in a world that still thinks that women are inferior? Because that's essentially what he was doing on that stage, was letting all of us women know in that room that we probably shouldn't be there and we didn't really deserve to be there. Yeah. And so I got up and left. I could still hear it from the bar that was outside the sort of main function room, which is why the words that sort of pricked my ears, I could still hear it. And a few other people walked out as well. And it's not an event that, they do ask not to have anything sort of broadcast from the event, but if you don't say anything, nothing happens. And again,
Exactly.
What happened off the back of that was a lot of people contacting me privately, a lot of them saying, oh, that's why I haven't been to that event for so many years. Men, I haven't been there for years because of that. And I sort of thought, why are you not standing up and saying this? Like, I've got up and I've said something, and hopefully it will have an impact, and hopefully it will let people know that that's not acceptable. But you kind of need your allies, the male journalists that contacted me. I kind of wish that they'd said it publicly, because it sort of made me feel like I'm just standing up and saying this. And then women's voices, but it comes women are standing up and saying that that's not acceptable. We need men to say that as well. And that's how you sort of can move forward. But, like I say, hopefully it will help going forward. And I think if you don't say anything, nothing changes. So
Yeah.
Sport in general, I think we'll have all experienced it. I'm pretty new to being on boards and stuff like that. But I think when you're looking now, it's going to take years and years and years, because boards are so set in the ways that harder to get off it than get in it. And they are one set of individuals that are on them boards at most sporting organisations, and it's going to take years to change. There's gradual change in some sports, but we could be talking another 20 years. It's going to take, because people don't want to leave these boards.
But it's difficult to stand up as well. It's difficult to say, I've been on this board for 10 years, but actually, no, I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
It's difficult to do that, and I get that. And I was in a position where I was in Scotland. Yes, I live there and I work in Scottish football, but my employers are predominantly based in England. So I didn't have that fear of like, oh, will this affect whether I get work next week or next month? I kind of had a little bit of security outside of it. But when you're on a board and you're in amongst your peers, it's difficult to stand up and say, that's not right.
Mm-hmm. And is there? I think it will be gradual change. And the problem is but they always feel as though, I think what happens is, especially now, they've had their thoughts for years and years and years, and some of them have been there from being probably 40, they're now 70, and they're never going to go anywhere. They're staying there. So they're set in their ways, they're always going to be that way, and nothing's going to change it. And it's going to take so long, especially certain sports, to play catch up. We see sports now get criticised, and there has been a change in some areas, but there's still a fight back and a kickback from the old group who still want to be part of it and don't want anybody else coming in. And unfortunately, we're going to get that for years and years and years, and it's going to take a long time. Way after me.
Bristol Street Motors present the very latest word on the street with the Driver Podcast.
So I just want to touch on and move on to performance under pressure now, because that's talked about a lot in sports, and a lot of the younger drivers, so I work with a lot of younger drivers who think, no, I don't need that. What's wrong with me? I'm fine. I can go out there, I can drive around a track fast, I can overtake. But what would be your advice? Because obviously, Darren, you've played at the highest elite level. I mean, what was your personal way of dealing with, because there must be so, especially in tournaments, so much pressure on you as well as a bowler to go out there and perform. You need to perform now. What was your way of dealing with it? Because everyone's got a different way, but it'd be interesting to see what your way of dealing with it was.
Well, they tended to call me box office, Gough. I think the bigger the crowd, the better I played.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I
always believed, you felt no pressure whatsoever.
Yeah, I always believed I wanted to be Saturday night television. That's what I wanted to do from being a kid,
Yeah.
And cricket, I saw it as an entertainment. It was my opportunity where the whole world are watching me. I'm stood at the end of my mark, and I've got the ball. Everybody's watching me. Run in, deliver the ball. This is the way I dealt with it mentally. Once I'd bowled it, they ain't watching me anymore.
Yeah.
So it don't matter. It don't matter what happened. If I knock the stumps out, yeah, they're all cheering. If I get it for 4 or a 6, they're not watching me. They're watching the batter. They're watching his talent. Hit it out of bounds. So they're clapping him. They're not thinking to me, oh, he's rubbish. So that's the way I dealt with it. In my head, I told myself, It's my moment to shine. If something great happens, I look sensational. If it doesn't matter. They're not watching me, they're watching the guy who's just done something sensational. So that's the way I dealt with it. It was mad. But the way I deal now with other sports is, I'm lucky enough, is golf. I do breath work to calm myself down. And that's purely because of my wife, because that's what she does. She's a breathwork teacher. So she's teaching me techniques that help to calm you and slow your heart rate down by breathwork. And I do it all the time. So when I'm playing in the Dunnel or golf tournaments, the Legends Tours or stuff like that, I do a box breath. So, and nobody even knows you're doing it. That's the great thing, you do it, and people are you're just quiet there doing it and thinking, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. And they can't, nobody has a clue, because it's like, you're not telling anybody, you're just doing it. And it really calms you down and relaxes.
Would you like to know that when you...
Yeah, absolutely. I think in sport now, we see the work of breath work and oxygen advantage and stuff like that, and massive, especially for runners.
Yeah.
And athletes like that. I've seen marathon runners, when they train, they take their mouth up to train to breathe through the nose, because we're supposed to breathe in and out through our nose all the time, and we use our mouth, we mouth breathe so much, especially at night time, because that's when men snore. We breathe through our mouth instead of breathing in through our nose and out through our nose. That's what we're supposed to do. That's why a lot of men snore.
And women, apparently. apparently. But another way that I feel pressure, and Eddie, you might relate to this a bit more, is social media.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I love the place, but I also absolutely hate it at times, especially, and I felt it maybe more now I've gone into a bit more broadcasting, the more sort of you're out there in the spotlight. Would you say that, for me, I think in some ways it has, doing my commentary, added a bit more pressure to me performing sort of behind the mic, behind the camera. Do you feel that it's, for both of you, because you're both in broadcasting, do you feel that's a little bit the same now? When social media wasn't there was maybe less pressure, but now it's there and everyone's always on it. Does it add that bit more pressure to you going out there and delivering?
You're certainly told if you've made a mistake.
Yeah.
100%.
I find Twitter is the worst.
Abuse, yeah.
I think I absolutely with you 100%. There's a place for social media, and it does a lot of good things, and it's a really important tool, I find. I mean, I can't imagine now doing my job without having Twitter, without knowing instantly and finding instantly what's happening. You know, everything is just in that one little news feed. But that's how I kind of use it now, is as a news feed. I don't engage really. I don't, and it's a shame, but I find it just a lot easier if I don't put much of myself on there. You know, it's essentially a work tool for me. I'll scroll through it and see what's been said in press conferences, you know, team lineups for evening matches, that sort of thing, reaction to games. I don't really use it for much other than that. My posts tend to be very work related. Not a lot of anything, even humour. You try and make a joke on Twitter, you learn very fast that it's not. Someone won't find it funny. It's not. Things get lost in translation. So yeah, my Twitter feed is incredibly boring now, and I think that's a shame. But I feel like I've probably been quite lucky in comparison to a lot of other people. I've not really had to deal with a huge amount of trolling and abuse and that sort of thing. Whereas I know others within the industry have had a lot of awful things to have to deal with. I mean, to death threats and just horrific stuff that, you know, nobody should have to deal with just doing their job. I mean, yeah. So I think that probably my relationship has changed with social media through it. I don't think of it as a pressure anymore. Like I say, if you make a mistake, you're told. But generally, if you make a mistake,
but do you feel that maybe you don't, if you go, oh, I've made a mistake, would you go, right, I won't go on Twitter today, I'll leave it a few more days just in case?
I think it depends, it probably would depend what the mistake was. I mean, I have made an innocent mistake. I didn't even know I'd done it at the time. For anybody who's ever spent much time in Glasgow, there's a very strong football divide in the city that's not all about football. And fans first back in the stadium. We were at Ibrox, an Old Firm derby. Fans were first back in the stadium, so it was all Rangers fans. They didn't allow any away fans in for the first couple of games after COVID. And so I'm in a studio, an enclosed studio within the stadium. I obviously could hear there's a lot of noise outside. Tina Turner's blasting away, Simply the Best, team's about to walk out. And at the exact moment that I said there's a brilliant atmosphere in here, the music dipped and the fans were singing a song that Celtic fans find, well, let's not go into the whole politics of it, but basically they were singing a song that I didn't know they were singing. And the music just happened to dip right at that moment. And I mean, I got a lot of abuse on Twitter for stoking sectarian fires and for being one side and the other side or whatever it was. I had no idea. I had no idea that it had even. I had no idea even what they were singing. So, and things like that sort of stick on Twitter. People don't watch. They don't, like, there are people who wouldn't have even watched that game who jump onto that and start
on the bandwagon.
You know, and you just think,
you have to have thick skin on social media. I've cut back on it a lot. I do Instagram a bit more and the stories, but Twitter, I agree. I think now, I think what made it worse is, but when you're in broadcasting, and I did it for 15 years, and I came from, even though football's always been my main sport, and I did start in football, people always say, "Oh, what's a cricketer doing talking about football?" It's called Talk Sport, so it was all sports. But so football is a big sport in this country. So I was used to get that, and I didn't mind that whatsoever because I know I've been nominated for loads of awards, Broadcaster of the Year, and all that sort of stuff. So it didn't bother me. You know what I mean? I've got thick skin. But what I didn't like in broadcasting is, but the company you work for, if you're talking for 20 minutes on a subject. They edit it to 30 seconds for a clip, and they put the clip out which is hard hitting. So people don't, it comes with an headline. They write a headline on it to create controversy. And people have not been listening to the show, and they don't know what we've been talking about, and they react to that. That really used to bother me. But that is down to getting hits by the company.
Yeah, I've had that as well.
But now in the job I've got now, and obviously we went through relegation this year, right at the end. A lot of things happened this year. I don't want to go into the ins and outs of it, but a lot of things happened and got relegation. And the club released clips. But you can imagine what follows by members. I'd love to, when we go for anything, they go back and look at all our tweets and all that stuff from years and years and years ago, and people look through them or screenshot anything we ever wrote that might be a little bit controversial or whatever. I'd love to go through some of the people who go on that, their employees, and go through every single tweet, because some of them, how they get away with some of the stuff they write and the personal abuse they can go down. It's amazing. And it's a shame because Twitter is such a good tool.
Yeah.
But I think it has become the tool to abuse people on.
Yeah.
And it's horrible. It
I'd
really
say
is.
it's probably the worst.
Yeah,
out of all of them together,
it's amazing. I mean, people just feel they've got a license just to abuse people.
It's, and like you say, I mean, you do need thick skin. It doesn't. The majority of it doesn't bother me, but when I think the only thing that sort of it bothers me initially is when your beliefs are being questioned. Like when it comes to whatever it might be, like I know who I am, and these people are telling me I'm someone I'm not, and they don't know me, and that it doesn't upset me, but it really annoys me because I'm like, no. And then you think about it, and I think, no, listen, who's important to me? Do they know who I am? Yes. Are these people essentially important in my life and my happiness? No. Am I ever going to meet them? Probably not. So you have to sort of rationalise it and put it into context. But that's the frustrating one, is when, like you say, a little 30-second clip out of context and suddenly someone can make a judgment on your beliefs.
They've not heard it. They've not heard the show. We've been talking about something for 20 minutes, you know what I mean? And they've edited it to get the likes and the tweets and all that. See, I don't do it for likes and stuff. I'm not interested. People say to me, "Oh, wait, you get someone to do all your social media, you get a lot more followers." I said, I'm not interested.
Sometimes that's the last thing you want.
Oh, you should have like 500,000 followers on Instagram. I said, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it for followers. I'm doing it because I like if I go and play St Andrews at golf, I'll take a picture because it's a memory and I can put it on my page and I'll know it's there forever, right? But I don't do it to get more followers.
But I think you do sort of build your social media profile. You know, like we both put golf stuff on our social media profile because that's something that we enjoy doing. Although there's a little bit of our personality. We'll let you see this little bit of us and what we enjoy doing, but you're not getting the rest.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, I think, what social media sort of become. But it's...
Well, you get a lot of footballers who don't even do the social media accounts, and it's got them in trouble. They pay companies to do it all for them, right? So they have companies who pay to do it all for them, and they never even know what's even on there. They don't even look.
No.
Because they don't want to read the abuse, because football's territorial.
If something's liked by, you know, it's not even them that's liked it, but it's amazing how many people... And I sort of wonder what... You know, who's got the time? But you look through who's liked a tweet. I don't even know how you look to see what likes people have done. And
it's get a lot of that's a lot of scrolling. There's a lot of likes.
Yeah, to be like, oh, he liked that post from he's a Man United player and he liked that post from Liverpool. Right, wait a minute, this is a big story.
There's going through searching for that. There's certain media.
Someone's got a job at some company that goes through and searches.
Oh, he liked that tweet, did he? Oh, right, yeah. And that is the problem with it, but it has so much good stuff as well, you know.
No, it really does.
I mean, even in sadness, the Queen's death, right? And if you look at social media and some of the posts on there were some magnificent tributes, right? So it's got a lot of good things as well, but it's just the abuse for me that it's come to a point where I don't even know why I do it anymore, and I very rarely put anything on there purely because it's just. Whatever you put, there's people out there just want to put you down for it, but there's people get a hit out of that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, for me personally, Twitter is that one that I get so much really nice support. All the support, you know, from when I'm in racing is really good. And actually, when I won my championships, God, a long time ago, 2010, I just wish that Twitter, I had this big Twitter and big social media back then, because for me as a sports person and trying to get through my career, that way I probably would have been able to get a lot more sponsorship through Twitter. It would have been a much bigger thing through Instagram, etc., compared to back then when it was, I don't know if Twitter even existed back in 2010, I can't remember now. So I think it's with that side, it's got that big positives, and for me, I just wish that it was bigger back when, and probably maybe for you, Darren, you might have even got some more sponsorship, big.
I might have been in a lot more trouble as well. That's the problem. So I actually I've spoke to a lot of guys my age, you know, who we played for England in that period, and we still say it was the best time to be a professional sports person. You know, we enjoyed it. It was a good mixture. We hit it hard on days off, but we also were so passionate about playing for our country. When you went to these tours, we tried our hardest. We just came undone by a better team or whatever. But now, the pressure of social media and everywhere you go, I mean, even me, if I go somewhere now, you go to an event, you talk about after dinner speaking, and you have to try and put a few funnies in here and there. But now you're there, and it's horrible. You feel as though you're on YouTube every minute of the time, because you're at an event, and people are there listening to you, but they're listening to you with their phones up. So
that's one thing I
don't get that.
The Queen's funeral as well, that when watching on TV, but everyone was on their phones. They weren't even watching it with their eye. They were watching it through the phone. And when I watched that,
it's a weird thing now. Gigs, everything you go to.
And do you know what's so good in a way as well? But people went in and queued up and went through to pay their tribute to the Queen, right? Nobody had the phones because they weren't allowed. But how good was that?
Yeah.
No, but if that wouldn't have been said, people would have gone through there.
Oh yeah.
Filming every second of it, because your life now is like the Truman Show. It is. It literally is. Everything is now on camera. You go to do. I'm going to an event in Cornwall over the next few days. I'll guarantee you now, unless I say to the guy, right, no filming while I'm talking about my career or whatever it is, because it's off-putting. You're there on stage and you've got somebody filming you talking, and it is really off-putting. Because you know they want to put them clips out on social media, and again, they're not in the room. They might see a couple of lines, and it throws you off, and it makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate that I get to work at the Masters, and it's you're not allowed your phone.
No phones.
No phones on the course. at all. A few sneak in. I have noticed a few been sneaking in you see some shots of players putting on the green, and you might see the odd phone, but very, very, like one across like 6 hours of broadcasting or something. So it's just an amazing thing, and it's amazing. It's weird the first couple of days you don't have, like, we can't have, as broadcasters, we can't have our phones in the course. We have no way of communicating with like our broadcast centre when you go out onto the course, and it's a really sort of strange feeling, and it does make you realise how dependent we've become on having a phone with us for everything. But it's actually quite liberating just not having it. You just leave it. I mean, we can take them into the broadcast centre, but we can't take them out of the broadcast centre. So you sort of leave your phone there, and you just have to say, I'm going off to record some links on the 14th, whatever, and
if you need me, come and find me.
If you go, and nobody can find you. But it's a very strange feeling the first couple of days, but I do like it. But just going back to social media, when we're talking about the good that it does, the one thing that like kind of frustrates me about the negative side of it is that you forget to mention all the nice things that people do say to you. And I don't tend to scroll through a lot of the messages I get after a game. And if I do, you do find some really nice ones in there.
All the time. There's some lovely people out there.
But you don't see them all the time if you don't scroll through the other stuff. And then you never get a chance to say to those people, thank you. And that's just a real shame with the other side of it as well.
Yeah, it is. I mean, in my preparation, because we're going to move on to talking about preparation for both of what you do, but I remember preparing when I was a youngster, when I was 16, 17, my phone would always be on me. And I wish, as now from racing, I could have told myself, put your bloody phone down, stop being distracted by whatever I was using on my phone. So for me, prepare now, I will just leave my phone in my helmet bag, my race kit bag, just go and listen to music or talk to people. I like to just go and chat. I hate sitting in the race car in silence, waiting to go out, not talking to anyone. So, rituals, what did you do, Darren, before a cricket game? Were you sat there having a beer, having a fag like James Hunt sort of racing days?
A few people did used to have a fag back in our day, by the way. We didn't have a beer before we played. But yeah, preparation then, before mobile phones, was totally different. You used to just get there, you'd do your usual warm-up. But I think over the times have changed now. Now I've come back to it, there is such a big difference now. In televised games or one-day games where betting's pretty big, you have to go into the dressing room, there's a box, everybody drops their phone. You're allowed 2 per dressing room. I'm one, and the physio's the other. So there's only 2 people can have their mobile phones. But you don't have to do that during a 4-day game, a county championship game. But our coach, Otis Gibson, has actually said at the end of the season what he'd like to see next year he's actually been shocked how many people are on their phones during a cricket match. Rather than if you think about it, we're asking him to engage for 6 hours in a professional cricket match where they're getting paid well to play. But a lot of them, especially the younger generation, are always on their phones. So they're not engaging on the cricket and learning and watching and chatting, which they should be. They're actually there on social media during a cricket match. They can't do it in a T20 game because it's a big betting, that's where all the big betting patterns are. So they have to hand them into a box and we have someone there to monitor it. So that is one thing I've noticed coming back in. But when I played, we never really had mobile phones, you know what I mean? It wasn't a thing back then, especially when you went abroad, because it cost you £7 £7 a minute to make a phone call. I got stung with one bill coming back from Sri Lanka and Pakistan, 2001. I came home and my bill was 10 grand.
Oh wow. My God, how many phone calls were you making?
And the worst thing is we were sponsored by Vodafone and my bill was £10,000, more than I got for the tour back then. And because you don't realise, I didn't realise, but you get called for, when someone calls you, you got charged, and when you call them, obviously you got charged more. So you had to accept charges coming in. And when I got that £10,000 bill, I was like, wow. Luckily, I was at the top of my game then. I was earning decent money from sponsorship and other stuff, but still, a 10,000 hit.
Yeah, that's
ridiculous.
I learned my lesson.
I'm never going to hopefully touch wood rack up a bill.
No, I hope.
Well, I learned my lesson, and it was my benefit year that year, so I was on the phone more. Luckily, a mobile phone company paid it.
Yeah, that's good. Nerves? Do you get nervous? I mean, everyone always asks me, do you ever get nervous? And I think if anyone that answers it, especially when they play sport, and they say, no, never get nervous, I think you are the biggest liar. I mean, for me, I think it's more excitement that sort of maybe generates the nerves. But for both of you, I mean, you're both pros. Do you still get nervous going into broadcasts?
I think when it's a big thing, so the last thing that I would have said that I was nervous, excited, nervous, like that kind of feeling for was Scotland against the Czech Republic in the men's Euros.
Yeah.
I presented that game. It was the only Scotland game the BBC ended up doing because, once again, failed to get out the group. It was the first Scotland game in a men's major tournament for over 20 years. And it was at Hampden Park. And I mean, I remember watching Scotland opening the World Cup in France 98 against Brazil. And I had rushed home from high school to watch that game because it was an early kickoff, 5 o'clock kickoff, I think. And I'd rushed home from school to watch that game. And if somebody had told me like 20 odd years, 23 years later, whatever it would be, that the next time Scotland were in a major tournament, I would be hosting and presenting that live on the BBC. That was just such a big moment for me personally. That would have been, that was in the lead up to that. And we had COVID and everything going on at the time, and I was getting tested every 2 days. And you're just thinking, oh my God.
More nervous getting tested if I got COVID before the race, especially for me. Like,
that last test when I got the all clear, I was like, oh, right, now I can start to get nervous about the game. But yeah, those big ones. I remember the first time I did the Masters as well, walking into that studio and just, that was Hazel's seat, who'd I'd grown up just wanting to be, basically, and to walk into that studio, and it wasn't Hazel sitting on it, but it was going to be me. That was also nerves, but it's excitement, it's nerves. The one at the Masters, there was a lot of, that was my first, I would say, sort of proper really big event that I did. The BBC did it live back then over the weekend, and that had that whole sort of like why I can't sit in that seat, like I can't sit in that seat. I'm not good enough to sit in that seat. So you had all that to like kind of get through as well. But the big events, I do still get the sort of that nervous, excited kind of feeling for.
Yeah. And
hopefully there'll be another
superstitions, because everyone says, I mean, I've gone through having to listen to a certain song. It's gone really well. So I go, right, next time before I get in the car, I'm going to listen to this song again. Yeah. Then it goes wrong. There's been lucky pants. I've had lucky socks. But now I've just given up. But I know people stick by. Some people get in a certain side of a race car. Some people have to have odd socks. Either of you, superstitions, Darren?
I think it's not superstitions. I think they just become habits. They really do. I think most cricketers, especially, have always put the left pad on first. I think that's one rather than the right. It's just habits. Yeah. We've all had the lucky trousers, lucky pants, lucky socks.
Then they get chucked away when they don't work.
We've all done that. Lucky boots. So we all do that. But on the nerves front, you're right. I get nervous in anything I do. I handle it well and I can control it.
But is that because you've had experience with playing sports?
But before that first ball, right to the end, from the first to right to the end, it's just that first one where you get the nerves. Once I'm in game, I think I'm pretty good. I don't really feel it, but before a game, definitely.
I'd say that's probably the same for me. I mean, Singapore was my last one, my last race, and nervous for the start, but then this 30 minutes race goes past and you go, oh yeah, why was I even
That's the amazing thing. Once you get into know, and you still, I still remember. It's like when you do Strictly, right? Strictly, I promise you, I got more nervous doing that than anything, because what happens is with that, you get a week to learn a dance, right? And it's muscle memory. Well. Yeah, it's muscle memory. That's all it is. But before you go on, you walk down and you're introduced. Your hands are dripping. You're literally dripping. And I'm not normally like that, but I was so... And you think, I can't remember any of it. The music starts, and what happens? It just takes over. Muscle memory takes over. But just before that 5 seconds, that feeling when you think, I don't know any of it. And it goes in your head. I don't know any of it. Music starts, and you just react. And that is an amazing buzz. And then when you finish, it's the best eye you will ever have. Because you've just done it in front of 13 million people watching.
Would you do it again?
Strictly
Or
not
like,
now.
nah, won that too many times. Dancing Eyes, that's another one, isn't it?
I don't think I could do that, no. There's always opportunities in reality television. I've done quite a few now. I've done a singing one, Sing If You Can, I won that. I did the dancing, I've won that.
Oh, I think you should go on dancing. I think you should do dancing.
I did another one, ski one, which was a mad one. I didn't
Is that
win
the
that.
jump?
Yeah, I didn't win
Did
that.
that?
That was the biggest regret for me. That show was mad. I did the first series, which health and safety wasn't.
I was going to say, has it not been taken off the TV now?
Well, when I think about that, during that show, I had concussion, I had damaged ankle ligaments, I had a metal leg anyway, which I've got had an osteotomy anyway. So on my femur, I've got 8 metal pins in that, and I tore my hamstring. So I had 4 injuries, and I was still having to do the show. When I think about it, I mean, now you would just not be allowed to go in the next day. And I was like there, concussion 1 minute, next day I'm jumping off a ski jump.
Yeah, that was crazy. But loads of people got injured on that.
Yeah, but we were the first show before it became a little bit more wary of everything. The first show, we were having 2 days practice and then we're going jumping.
Oh my.
Now, at least as it went on, they got a little bit more preparation.
Yeah.
We did speed skiing. They binned that after the first one. We did speed skating. They binned that after the first one. And that's where I broke 3 ribs. I forgot that one. I broke 3 ribs on speed skating. And I was still doing the show. I'm thinking, what am I doing here? I'm not even getting paid a lot of money. You know what I mean? It's not like some of these people that go on some reality shows and get like ridiculous amounts. That was a set fee that everybody was getting. It was stupid. Would you do Love Island?
No, God, no. Jeez.
I got asked. This is hilarious.
To do Love Island?
The original, 2005 was the first Love Island. Callum Best did it. I was asked to do the original in 2005.
Wow.
Can you
Not for
believe
me.
that? That's so long ago. But now I see what it is now.
Imagine they did a Celebrity Love Island.
It's
There
compelling
will do.
viewing,
It's
though.
coming. It's coming. What about another 50 Love Island? That's coming. They're all coming. There's
Yeah.
going to be so many of them going to be
I
hitting
find it
our,
quite
hitting our
compelling
screens. We're just a reality nutcase world, aren't we?
What they put, what they put them through now on Love Island is wild.
I know.
No, you won't see me going
No.
on any of that.
Bristol Street Motors present the very latest word on the street with the Driver Podcast.
So there's one question that you guys have been asked loads of questions over your career. One question that nobody has ever asked you before, but you expect that they would ask.
Oh, dear.
Tricky one.
That is a tricky one.
That
I
is
would
a tricky one.
expect that they would ask.
Probably, realistically, since I've retired, where do you see yourself as the world's, as far as England's concerned, where do you honestly feel as though you are in the best ever? Nobody ever asks you that. You know what I mean? They always put the stats out.
Yeah.
This, that. Because it's very hard, sport, to judge different eras, you know? And you see now the era now where you've got bowlers now playing 200 test matches. If you played 50 when I played as a bowler, you'd hit the jackpot. 50 test matches was like, now you play, then it was 5 years after me, it was you've got to play 100 tests. And now you've got the Andersons and Broads, the Cooks, the Stokes, the Roots. They're going to play 150 and 200 tests. The game, stats now is just going to be, in all sports, I think, are just going to be dominated by the modern day sports person, right? In whether it's athletics, whether it's racing, lap times, whether it's cricket, wickets taken, runs scored, because there's more and more. There's more and more events. Points scored in a season,
And
goals scored in a
everything,
season.
technology, everything,
Yeah,
training
technology.
facilities.
Yeah.
When it comes to like cars or golf balls or, with that side of it is making such a difference as well.
So all you'll remember is the real heroes of sport, like your Nicholas, like your Tiger Woods, right? Like your Lewis Hamilton, like your Sennas. So the real Schumacher, stuff like that. So they're the people you're going to remember. Venus Williams, I mean, they're the ones you're going to be. Serena Williams, actually, probably more than Venus.
Both,
and that's hard
really.
because they've both been well. You could
Yeah.
argue, but she's probably the greatest sports person of all time.
Serena.
Serena, unbelievable. So you're only going to remember the real, and perhaps that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Because stats are just thrown out the window.
Yeah. I have no idea because I don't know what to expect that someone should have asked me.
Somebody will always ask you something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There'll always
But
be a
I don't
short
know whether
question
I've
in
been
there.
asked them all.
Where did that come from?
Yeah.
But,
I like those questions.
yeah,
I think
I don't mind. I
the
can
ones
answer
that are
most questions.
slightly
Where you hadn't had it
different.
before. Yeah.
Yeah.
We touched on Serena Williams. Which would you guys say? Great to hear what you think about. Who's the most? Which sports person would you say has the most impact on society? Because you said Serena,
So
she's
many.
got to be
Even before
the
Serena.
greatest sports person.
Billie Jean King.
Yeah.
I mean, there wouldn't have been a Serena Williams without Billie Jean
Yeah.
King. So, there's so
Serena,
many.
though, for the modern, I mean, is just what she's achieved is amazing. And the film about, have you seen the film?
Yeah,
The film is just unbelievable. What they had to go through. I mean, bless their dad. I mean, he was obviously a very pushy parent, right?
Yeah.
Back to
So
start.
it shows it does work. And you look at Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if I could think of one person that changed the game of golf for me, I know the Palmers and the Nicholas were great.
Yeah,
but
no,
Tiger
Tiger's
Woods, what
changed
he's
golf
done
for all of us.
what he's done for the modern day golfer, commentator, he's created now a money machine.
Muhammad Ali.
Right.
I mean, I'm going to the boxing this weekend, so I've already thought of him.
Yeah. There's so many, and it depends on what sort of social change you're looking at. I mean, Colin Kaepernick taking the knee. I mean, that's an iconic moment in sport that just went around the world.
Yeah.
Megan Rapinoe speaks out for women's rights, abortion rights, equality in the sport. So many different things, and I think if it touches you, or people or your demographic, then it's really positive. But even people like Vincent Kompany, the work that he did for homelessness in Manchester when he was at Manchester
Marcus
City,
Rashford
incredible.
recently
Marcus
as well,
Rashford.
Yeah, we did a lot of that on Broadcasting with Talksport.
There's
John
so
Henderson,
many.
the way he got everybody together during COVID,
Yeah.
and got all the captains together, stuff he did, which can get forgotten.
Yeah.
But when you always look at my sport, and I look at the people that changed it, because throughout each era, there's always one person that changes it. So if you go back to the Don Bradman days, the W.G. Grace, these stands out, you know what I mean? And then you go to Beefy Botham, Viv Richards, Shane Warne, bless him. I mean, what Shane Warne did, Shane Warne made cricket sexy. Would you believe it? He made cricket sexy because he just believed everything he was doing. He believed in his own ability. He played with confidence. He played with a smile. And he had a unique skill. He bowled leg spin. Leg spin, who would have thought but a leg spinner would have got that many wickets? And he went on to be an absolute diamond. So and now you've got people like A.B. de Villiers, got Virat Kohli, you've got, you know what I mean, we've got Joe Root in England, we've got Ben Stokes. These things, just have it throughout each era. I love looking back and look each specific era and seeing the people that change sport and take it just a little bit further or do something different. And we could all list people in racing or in golf or in football that have done that throughout any era, and I love looking at them.
There will always be someone that has inspired them. With me, it was Michael Schumacher.
Yeah.
But who inspired you? Obviously, you got into cricket. It wasn't
Glenn Hoddle.
Yeah.
Played for Tottenham and 81 at Tottenham. It was unbelievable. I was 11, so I was highly influenced by that. Golf, Seve Ballesteros. 81 again, Nick Faldo around that time. And then in cricket, it was Ian Botham. Ian Botham, amazing, 81 Ashes, again 11. I believe 11 is a year, when you're 11 at school, where you get influenced by something. I think that is a massive year for me, age 11. And 3 sportsmen stood out, or 4. Faldo, Ballesteros, Hoddle and Botham.
Yeah, and for you? You said you played football at school.
I did play football at school. I mean, again, back then there weren't
Female
many
footballers,
female footballers, but there is that iconic photo of Brandi Chastain after the USA won the Women's World Cup out in America, which I can't remember the year exactly, and she pulls off her shirt and she's on her knees just in her sports bra, and I mean it's the image that Abby Wambach says inspired her and made her realise that girls could become footballers, or it was okay for girls to have athletic bodies. She practically had a six-pack. She was, you could see the muscles in her arms and just that joy, and you think, wow, like that, it seemed so foreign in so many ways. I mean, the fact that it was America and it was over in America, and Scotland weren't there and we didn't know anything about it, didn't see any games on the telly, but that image you saw, and that was an image that I sort of, once I saw it, I mean, I was obviously older than just child age, but you sort of see it and think like that, what an incredible moment that is, to be able to feel that, like, as a woman, and these full stadiums that they had at that World Cup and everything. But yeah, like I grew up watching my local football team, St Johnstone. Big shout out to the Super Jays. So yeah, I mean, I loved watching them. They would have been, I didn't sort of go, oh, my heroes were playing for Man United or Arsenal or whatever. Like I watched St Johnstone. I like Nick Dazovic was, Callum Davidson. These guys, they were the players that I watched playing. But we were quite fortunate as well in Scotland at that time. Some of we had some fantastic players at Celtic and Rangers that came in and played, and I mean at various other clubs as well. But the likes of sort of Brian Laudrup and Henrik Larsson and these players that played when I was growing up, were good to watch. But
I could go out of that. Do you know when you talk about your local as well? I've gone the global side there, but again, you've talked about even like for me, for Barnsley, where I'm from, I could probably name the team that played, and I remember watching from 8 and 9 years old. I could probably name the starting 11 because it was the first starting 11 I saw, and I could still name that team. And it will always be there, those names, you know what I mean? Like the Joe Joyce, the Phil Chambers, the Mick McCarthy's, the Ian Evans, the Parkers, the Trevor Aylocks, and these sort of guys, Ian Banks, Ronnie Glavin. Ronnie Glavin played for Celtic. People like that, you can name them players because they were part of you growing up, and you never forget them. The first football matches you go watch, they're there with you forever. The first experience of a sporting event, they're there with you forever and ever and ever till the day I die.
Yeah.
So those inspired you. What would you say to the next generation of broadcasters for you, Eilidh, and then for cricketers? What advice would you be giving to those wanting to be you, basically?
Don't be me. Be yourself. It's the hardest thing, actually, I think, in broadcasting is to be yourself in front of a camera or in a studio, because, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on at the same time, but you're very concentrated on your job, but you've got to put your own personality into it. You've got to have your own passions. You've got to allow that to come through, because that is what ultimately sets you apart from everyone else. So I would just always say to people, be yourself. Let your passion come through. Ask lots of questions, listen, and don't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
I like that, be yourself, but I think for me, if you want to be a professional cricketer, don't get heads up on the technique side of it from a young age. Go out and hit the ball as far as you can. Go out and bowl it as fast as you can, or spin it as much as you can, and just play with a smile. You do all that, if you're talented enough, it'll come through.
Yeah.
But I think we probably, in cricket, you start doing technique with kids who are 6 and 7. Yes, they have to be safe.
But they probably don't understand it, surely, at that age.
Let them just go out and hit the ball. Just hit it and enjoy it. And that's the way it should be. Play with a smile. Just be free.
Yeah,
that's why we do it, isn't it?
Yeah, well, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, we do it because we love it.
Yeah.
And finally, Darren, what's next for you? What have you got lined up?
Back to my day job.
We've got dancing on ice. We're going to set you up for. We're going to chuck you into the jungle.
No. I think I'm interim MD of cricket at the minute at Yorkshire. That takes enough of my time. It's not been an easy 9 months, 10 months. It's been probably the hardest challenge of my life. But it's to still stick with my beliefs, still keep pushing for change, still make it a more inclusive and better place for everyone to work, and see what it takes me. Broadcasting, I'll be doing some of that as well. Mm-hmm. I'll be doing some of that in South Africa in January. So I love broadcasting. I always want to be part of it, but I also love being involved in professional sport at the ice level. So I'll just keep trying to do what I do. Some people will like it, some won't.
Yeah, it goes
I'll
back
make
to that
mistakes.
social media thing.
I'll make mistakes.
Yeah.
I'll do some good things, but I always say, as long as you have more good days than bad days, we're all right.
Very true. Take that myself, actually. Aidan, what about you?
Yeah, football season. Unfortunately, I won't be going to the World Cup, so I'll plan myself a little holiday
England
to get over
are
there.
Are you going to go and cover them?
No. Couldn't get through the playoffs, could we? No, I won't be in Qatar, so I will watch that. I'll go on holiday, I'll enjoy myself and, not feel jealous about everyone else who's got teams to support during that time. And football season, and look to next summer, Women's World Cup next summer, so fingers crossed Scotland won't be there again, but hopefully that won't stop me being there this time. Golf season starts in terms of BBC coverage in April, back out to the Masters, so yeah. Good stuff.
I might see you there. I might be the Masters.
He's going to be playing,
Be-
You'll see him on the course.
Yeah. No,
I won't.
It's a special week that week. So.
All right, guys. Well, honestly, to both of you, thank you so much for coming on. It's been great to hear your stories, inspiring the next generation. So honestly, thanks very much. Safe trip back, and hopefully see you all soon.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Enjoyed it.
Cheers. And thanks for everyone who has listened to episode 2 of The Driver. Stay tuned for more on our socials, and hope to see you all very soon.